This is my 1983 AMC Eagle SX4. If you look at a lot of cars on the internet, this car actually made it onto barn finds. I didn't see it there. I actually found it on Craigslist, but there's a whole article about this car on barn finds. Anyway, I bought this thing sight unseen. It was in Minnesota. And the good news about this car is the body's real solid. The frame is super solid. And it's also the right model. You know, it's got the spoiler. It's got the nice sport steering wheel. It's got air conditioning, and it's got the big 6-cylinder engine. Oh, it's also got these nice wheels. The downside of this car is it has over 180,000 miles on it. So that is an awful lot of miles for one of these cars. This SX4 is the sport model. I think the sport model just gets you this nice blackout at the bottom. I think it gets you those wheels. I think it gets you certain seats. It might get you that sport steering wheel. I'm not sure what else. Probably this rear spoiler. If you're not familiar with these cars, what's unique about them is they're four-wheel drive. They have an option to select four-wheel drive. They're two-wheel drive, and then if you turn it on, they're full-time four-wheel drive. This car was based on the AMC Spirit. So if you remember those, you could definitely see the Spirit in this one. I'm going to open the door and just show you this nice sport steering wheel. So this is the nice sports steering wheel. I like it. It's leather. It's got, you know, these bolts going across. So that's pretty cool. This car is supposed to be equipped with air conditioning, but one of the sight unseen surprises I found when I got the car is everything to do with the air conditioning is non-existent under the hood. So I don't know what's going on. It doesn't even look like they removed the air conditioning because there's no brackets for it. There's no sign of like where any of the lines used to go. So I'm kind of mystified by that. And I'm also a little bit pissed because one of the reasons I picked this particular car was because it was supposed to have air conditioning, and I expected the air conditioning not to work, but I figured I would fix it. This is the thing that activates the four-wheel drive. So you pull this down and slide this switch. It uses a vacuum actuator down on the transmission to engage the four-wheel drive. Anyway, it's pretty rough in here, but I've decided to make this my project car. The bones are real good, so I will definitely be able to come up with something. The project today is to change the valve cover gasket. I guess one of the inherent problems with the AMC 6-cylinder engine, this is the 4.2 liter, I think it's a 258 cubic inch, is they have this plastic valve cover, and I guess the gaskets blow real easy because the valve cover top doesn't have evenly distributed bolts to hold it down, and plus it's made of plastic. So there's some solutions for this that are aftermarket, and they involve an aluminum cover. But what I don't like about those solutions is you have to drill holes into your engine block and tap new screws. I don't really want to do that. My actual plans for this car is I'm going to put in this crate engine that there's a company that makes a fuel injected upgraded engine for this car, and they do a lot of performance modifications to it, and I'm probably going to buy that engine and put it in. So I only need this thing to not shoot oil all over the place while I'm driving it around doing various things. So I'm just going to see if I can put on the valve cover, the gasket, and to see if I can get it to work for a little while and just not shoot oil everywhere when I'm driving. I've already loosened a lot of the bolts. You can see them hanging out. The troublesome bolt is way back here, kind of under the firewall. So I went to the auto parts store and bought a special extension for my sockets to see if I could get that out. So I'm going to try and get that first. If I can't get that, I'm not going to bother, and this will be a real short project. So this is the thing I bought at the auto parts store to get the socket on. The socket is a 7/16, and let's see if this will work. All right, I got the extension onto the bolt. You can see it way down there. I can't even quite get it on the bolt. I mean, I can't get the video right on the bolt. But anyway, you can see. So anyway, I'm going to start turning this. See if it's going to come loose. I think I'm going to have to stop. I think I'm going to have to stop the camera to really know what's going on. Unbelievably, that bolt came out with this thing nice and easy. So if you've got a Jeep or an Eagle or a Spirit and you need to get that bolt out from under the firewall, this is the tool. So the next thing I have to do is remove this vacuum line bracket. There's nuts right there, bolts right there, so I'm just going to remove this and get it out of the way. Looks like a few of my vacuum lines are bad. I have to figure that out. The vacuum mount came off real easy. I went ahead and marked that vacuum hose that looked bad so I can address that later. Next I just need to pull this hose, and I've already got the main bolts loosened, so I need to take those off. And then I'm going to pry this out of here. So we'll see how easy this goes. I've got the bolts that go around off. Now I'm going to get these center ones. There are 2 of them. And the size is 7/16. I have all the bolts and nuts off now. So there's a little front one up here. And then it seems like these spacers, like there's these special kind of strange wide nuts here. I can't quite tell whether they're holding the valve cover down or not, but it would make sense if they were. So I wasn't able to get it loose, so there was one of them here that looked just like this one. So I'm taking these off too. Now that I've got the valve, all those nuts out, the valve cover, it moves around pretty freely. I'm gonna, have to do a little prying to get it off, but it's definitely loose now that I have those big nuts off. I've got the valve cover off. So I had to loosen the tie for this radiator hose and move that out of the way to get the cover off. And all of this wiring and stuff I just kind of had to push and move out of the way as I pulled things off. But anyway, I've got the cover off. Wasn't that terrible? This is what the old gasket looks like, and it's really chewed up right there. It makes me wonder if it was torqued down too tight when it was installed. This one's like rubber and metal. So I'm gonna head to the auto parts store now and see what to buy. Anyway, this is the and this is the cover. It's plastic, but it doesn't appear to be damaged. Hi, it's been about a week and a half since I last worked on the Eagle SX4. The issue was I was waiting for the gasket I had to order for the valve cover to arrive. I was really surprised that I couldn't just go to a local parts store and buy that gasket. After all, this 6-cylinder engine is used in thousands and thousands of Jeeps, you know, all through the 80s. But for some reason, the parts stores just did not have this valve cover gasket, so I had to order it. And it's here now, so I am going to go ahead and complete the replacement of the valve cover gasket on the 1983 Eagle SX4. To the left down there is the gasket I bought. I got a slightly upgraded gasket. This one is 2 layers of cork with a metal core. So it was cork on the bottom, metal, and then cork on the top. Down here, I went ahead and bought an original AMC service manual, and it covers my 4.2 6-cylinder engine. So this is the the AMC Eagle service manual. This particular manual is missing some details about the SX4, but we're just talking about the engine here, and so it's relevant to the engine. It specifies using a AMC gasket in a tube silicone sealer that you would put a bead down before you laid in the actual gasket. That of course doesn't exist anymore, so I went ahead and bought this one. This one is slightly upgraded in that it's the red high temperature, so I'm going to be using that. And then I know that I lost a lot of oil, so I'm going to try this this Valvoline Max Life for high mileage cars, since this engine has 180,000 miles on it. At the end, there's a couple other surprises in these instructions in the manual. In the manual, it talks like there should be studs sticking out of the engine block for the gasket to go down on and the valve cover to go down on, but mine does not have studs. Mine had bolts, that go into threaded holes. So that's a little difference. It would be, actually, I think it would be nicer if I had studs, but I don't. So again, I'm just gonna have to use the bolts I've got. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to follow the instructions, and I'm going to clean the top of the engine where the gasket goes down real well, and I am going to clean the valve cover. One thing I noticed when I took the valve cover off is there is no RTV, no silicone gasket compound on this block anywhere. I'm figuring that probably contributed to the leaking and the failure of the seal. I don't really know. So all I really have to do is clean up the grease. So I'm going to use this brake parts cleaner, and I'm just going to spray it on this towel. It says it's for grease and grime, and I'm just going to clean the oil and grease off. I've been cleaning a little while, and after I started cleaning, I did discover that there are minute amounts of something stuck to the block, and so I am using a razor blade to scrape that stuff off. I'm going to go ahead and start putting down my gasket maker. The instructions on this vary from the instructions in the shop manual, but the shop manual is 30 years old. So anyway, this says it's got a working time of an hour. but to put it down and wait 20 minutes before putting the gasket on. So I'm going to put a bead of this on the engine, and I'm going to put a bead of this on the cover. I've got the bead of RTV down. I had to climb up into the engine bay to get the stuff in back, that problem under the firewall. And I have also gone ahead and put the bead on the valve cover itself. So I'm going to let these sit for a little while. The directions said 20 to 30 minutes, and it's already been a little bit of time. So I'm going to let these sit for a little while and then seat the new cork sandwich gasket. I've waited 30 minutes now. It says in the directions on the silicone to wait till it's a little bit firm, and it is definitely a little bit firm now. So I'm going to take this gasket and go ahead and put it on. It says to put the gasket on first. The kit included these rubber grommets, so I've already put those on. So I'm going to fit the cork gasket now, the cork sandwich gasket, and see how that goes. I'm going to start by slipping it in at the hard end and seeing how that goes. I've got the gasket in place. I had to remove this radiator hose, and a couple of the vacuum hoses ended up being in the way, and I moved those, but it is in place now. So next I'm going to go ahead and put the cover on. I've got the cover in place now. I'm not thrilled with the way it went down, so I'm going to slip in the bolts and get everything lined up and see if I'm happy then. I've got all the bolts on. Now I'm just screwing these these wide things down. I'm not sure what these kinds of bolts are called, but they have a bunch of extra, I mean, they're like super thick washers, and they hit the edge of the valve cover to hold it down. Oddly enough, that bolt that online everybody talks about being impossible, the one at the very back here, it actually was literally the easiest bolt to put on. I don't know why. It just slipped right into the hole, and using this flex tool, to get around that curve into the firewall, it worked perfectly. So I'm just going to finish screwing these things on. And after I do that, I'm going to make another round around and torque things down more. I finished torquing everything down, and I have put everything back together on the engine. I'm going to have to go back and look at my reference pictures for the vacuum line manifold right there, because I'm just not sure that's 100% correct. I'm going to go ahead and check the oil, because so much oil had leaked out. Doing this with one hand. All right. I don't know if you can see this on the video, but the oil is definitely low. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of that high mileage oil I bought. I put the new battery in, and I've got it running. There's a lot of belt squeaking. I'll have to trace that down. Smoking there, not sure what that is. Hopefully it's just oil burning off. So that's the oil spot under the car. That's from done with the gasket project. Now I gotta find the squeaks. So I guess that's it for this video. I hope showing this helps you with your Eagle projects in the future. And be sure to check out my other videos. I'm going to be posting a video about this bike shortly. This is my Ford GT40 tribute scooter, so look for that video. Alright, thanks for watching, and good luck with your projects. Ooh, sounds like the speaker's going away.